Steve Jackson is the Australian's Media Diary editor. Jacko, I've taken the liberty of doing your stars for today.
Well, I hope you haven't been focusing on it too much because that could lead to an almighty blow-up.
It's actually very interesting. As a Sagittarius, you are seeing long-term projects finally come together.
Look, as I've said, fascinating. But I don't know if this comes to the detriment of everything else on this show, Claire.
It's time for diligence in career and finances requiring patience, Jacko, as efforts begin to bear fruit. Focus on maintaining emotional maturity in relationships.
Look,
you can't argue with this. This is science.
Look, everyone in here has been talking about your star signs, your obsession.
Now, the blow-up between Kyle and Jackie O was partly about horoscopes, the two titans of the Australian FM radio scene, probably the highest-earning FM radio stars Australia's ever seen, in the middle of a $200 million deal, have broken up. And it was all about this fight. I'm going to play you a little bit of the fight that they had about horoscopes. So Jackie O would have been able to see this coming, Jacko.
Well, she would have read it in the stars.
You're off with the fairies with...
Tell me where. No. Tell me where I've been off with the fairies during the show.
I don't have to prove anything.
No, you do. You can't accuse me of doing something and then say I don't have to
listen to the program. You'll hear yourself.
Oh, no, just give me one example.
Be aware of what's really going on.
I am, Kyle. I totally am offended by you saying something like that.
Well, too bad if you are, because that's the reality of what we're dealing with here.
Oh, that is so unfair. I have been in here doing the segment...
So as that conversation goes on, we hear Kyle do what he's done a million times on that show, which is do a bit of real-time feedback to Jackie. She does it to him all the time as well. She's called him fat on air before. She's called him crazy. She generally reacts to him raising some sort of topic of sex with her like, oh, Kyle. But here she's really upset. And it turns out that this wasn't just an act.
Well, yeah, that's the thing is, and I think even after this initially went to air, people were questioning, is this a stunt? Is this something to get people talking? We know they've been trailing in Melbourne. Is this something to get people interested? Everyone's talking about it. So I think for a while there was this real question. People were divided. Is this a stunt? Is this real? Even this morning I was still getting messages from people going, this is all an elaborate stunt. It's not. And I think we could tell that the moment that show was turned into a full episode podcast by ARN for the Kiss FM podcast channel, that 10 minutes was cut entirely. So you could tell that it wasn't cut out as the bust up between our top rating stars. It was quite obviously from the moment they came off air, this was going to be a problem.
These two have been pinged by the regulator. They have been fined. They have been ordered off air for the things that they have said on air. Why do you think after 27 years of this partnership, Jackie Henderson, Jackie O, has chosen now to be sick of Kyle, to be sick of what he's doing to her?
Well, I think it's an evolution. Like, you look, they've been working together since 1999, 27 years. But you think about the people we were 2 decades, 27 years ago. You evolve, right? And she's quite clearly evolved. She's had some momentous life-changing moments. He's moved to America, lived in LA, moved back, married, divorced, remarried, become a father. So they are different people now. Kyle is still doing the very successful shtick from 20 years ago, crude, in your face, this is what attracts headlines. Can you believe he said it? Whereas Jackie has evolved as a person and she no longer wants to be the hapless sidekick going, oh, Kyle, rein it in, which has been her role for a large part of it. She's been the good girl and he's been the bad guy. And, it's the straight man routine, but, she has become the highest paid woman in the Australian media industry as part of this deal until they tore it up this week. And she no longer wanted to just be the foil or play second fiddle and just be the person being abused by Kyle because that's the show, right?
Yeah, they had some amazing chemistry as part of all of that. And one of the things about the business model was that you're prepared to listen to, I had a listen this morning and there were 15 ads played at 8:20. 15-second ads for things like dog food and sofas. I'm happy to listen through 15 ads if what I'm going to get at the end of the ad break is not poor old Smallsy, who's hosting the show in their absence, but Kyle potentially saying the C word, potentially starting a fight with a Hollywood star, potentially berating Jackie. The danger and drama of that radio format is what has made it successful. As a businesswoman, though, and Jackie is the part owner of this business, it's intriguing that she had a red line and that he's now crossed it.
Yeah, I think, and it's a really interesting thing because, if we have our differences here, and we've probably had some over the years, Claire, I know I've pitched one of your stories before it was ready on the news list. And
I'm over that. You can let go.
And there were words exchanged, right? It doesn't play out in front of the public. And quite often what their exchanges are, they are usually funny, whimsical, and everyone's in on the joke. This time he has attacked her professionalism in a way that even if you kind of go, yeah, she is off with the fairies, with the star signs, which some people will think, other people go, no, this is very serious science. But was it an appropriate time to do that? I don't know, probably not. And it's that thing about jokey banter with colleagues is it stops becoming a joke when only one side of it's finding it funny.
She's obviously in a pretty vulnerable place. She has spoken in the past few years about overcoming a prescription medication addiction, an alcohol problem. She went to the Betty Ford Clinic. She came back and had this very sort of spectacular glow up, and is now positioning herself, I think, in the Gwyneth Paltrow mould as a bit of a wellness influencer. She started a podcast with her best friend Gemma O'Neill, who is also her manager and a very formidable broadcast identity in her own right. She's a behind-the-scenes player who's very savvy. They had a podcast called Her Best Life, in which they talked about relationships and sex, but they talked a lot about horoscopes as well. And that's part of the evolution of the Australian woman. Horoscopes are huge with not only really young women in their 20s, but the midlife woman who's maybe she's got divorced, she's sick of the toxic guy who sits next to her at work, and she's all about, as they pronounce it, Uranus rising in Sagittarius now.
Well, I think it's quite interesting because she's talked openly about what her aspirations were with this show. She got the $200 million deal. Obviously, that's not all her money. It's about $100 million each for Kyle and Jackie. What she wanted to do at the end of it, she wanted to use that money to live in Australia 6 months, live 6 months in Italy. So it's very much she's at a eat, pray, love time of her life. As you say, the star signs or the horoscopes, a lot of New Age beliefs. She's admitted that she has moved into a more woke space, given her beliefs, while Kyle is very much, Donald Trump. And that's all good for a show. Like no one is more bored by people arguing in furious agreement about how much they concur on stuff. The problem is that it does get personal at times where, as you say, she's gone through all these emotional milestones and she comes back and Kyle quite openly says on the radio show, "Oh yeah, I didn't read your book. I don't care about that. Like I don't." and we know people who've written books. You don't always want to read them. You've got to glance at them at the very least.
Have a look at the index to see if you get mentioned.
Yeah. But as someone, that is a labour of love writing a book. And from a friend to go, didn't read it, have no intention of reading it, I don't care. You can think, given their persona, she's too resilient to worry about it. No, it's a hurtful thing. If I write a book, you better be reading it.
As a business person, though, Kyle is right, isn't he? I mean, it is not good radio to hear someone talking about, as she was in that moment, Andrew Mountbatten Windsor's stars, and whether that was why he was facing so much difficulty right now. I mean, he delivered it very poorly, and in 2026, that's not the way you give feedback, but he's right.
Whether or not he's right, do you reckon he should have said it then and there? Is that...
It made good radio. I mean, that has been their business model in the past. I think it was quite reasonable for him to expect that she would fire back, or at least that it would be maybe an awkward moment, a little bit of outrage from her. I mean, and they're both also vulnerable in a business sense. Their foray into Melbourne was an absolute catastrophe. The penis and vagina repartee didn't work with Melbourne's audience, who were much more into, what's happened to the piccolo lately. So that's a businessman under pressure, arguing with his business partner, a woman who's also under her own kind of pressure, isn't it? I think he would have a defence, if this went to court, that he could have quite reasonably expected that she would ride that out.
Well, look, you are right.
Stop agreeing with me, Jack.
No, you've kind of changed my mind on that, because I think you're right. Because let's face it, if they try to terminate Kyle's contract, there is every chance this is going to go to court. Like, we're talking about $90 million worth of employment for the next 9 years. Let's not forget they're a few years into their second year of this deal. That's $90 million. He's going to fight to keep that and say, as you point out, here are 50,000 examples of where I've made comments like this in the past, and it's part of the joke and it's part of the chemistry. So, yeah, you're probably right that he would have expected, hey, this is our banter, this is what we do.
ARN will be glad to see the back of them, won't they?
Oh, God, yes. Like, could you imagine? I haven't checked the share price. Should I check the share price?
Yeah, check it. The ad deals that they would have done going into this deal would have been predicated on the show being a success in Melbourne. And it just was not. That was quite enjoyable, I think, for those of us who've been sceptical about Kyle and Jackie O's brand of media in the past. I mean, I quite enjoyed the fact that they didn't do that well in Melbourne. It's a bit depressing about Sydney that people love hearing the two of them banter about anal sex.
Yeah, I think you're right, because when they were cutting edge was because they were young and they're cutting edge. Now you're sort of listening to someone who's old enough to be your mum or your dad talking about this sort of stuff. In your 20s, it's like, it's hip. It's, I can't believe they're saying it now. Are they really do we want to listen to someone with grey hair in Kyle's case, or someone who's at a more mature phase of her life talking about this sort of stuff? And it's that sort of expectation, and we see it with animated comedies where they never grow up, and we expect these guys are characters, right? They are entertainers, they're characters. The person Kyle Sandilands is on air isn't the person he is off air. Like, by all reports, everyone who's with him, the few occasions I've spoken to him, he's actually a really kind, caring, compassionate person. Jackie's the same, but they play characters on this show, and it's that point where the listeners, they think they still imagine them to be this time from 20 years ago, and the show hasn't evolved and they haven't grown up or gotten older. It's like they're a band and they're still playing the first album. They haven't matured. And
what was revolutionary about that show, what was different certainly, was that they were prepared to talk about things like sex. She certainly was as well. And now Abby Chatfield is talking about her vagina, and so is even more mainstream kind of in middle of the road people like Laura Byrne. So why would you want to hear Jackie O talk about her vagina? It's not shocking anymore. And also she's 51. She's old enough to be your mum. The sand has moved out from under them.
Yeah, and as you say, it used to be shocking. It used to be, we're talking, they started an era not too long after, Salt and Pepper, Let's Talk About Sex, Baby, where this is cutting edge, young people, daring to talk about the things no one else would talk about. Now it's we can't get them to shut up. Like, save something for the book. You meet someone and next thing you know, they're telling you what they like to have sex with, how they like to have sex. You're like, I didn't even ask. So it's part of that that cutting edge, that difference is no longer that different. Everyone's doing it. And, as I say, they've grown. And the interesting thing is, having just checked their share price, the announcement that the show's off the air for 2 weeks, that this 200 million contract is kaput, share price is up.
So they've given Kyle 14 days to remedy what they say is serious misconduct. Jackie O is saying in a statement released by the company that she can't work with him anymore. That seems pretty definitive. They've said they've offered her another show. There's a lot to unpack there. Firstly, would anyone listen to the Jackie O show?
I think that ARN is in a real spot of bother. I don't think that there is a commercial market for a Jackie O show by herself. I don't think there is a particularly strong commercial market for a Jackie O show with a different co-host. Unfortunately, and I get that she has been the highest paid woman in media, I don't think there is an appetite for that outside of the Kyle and Jackie O show for a major commercial mainstream audience. Yes, the podcast has done quite well, but as you say, that is a very niche specific audience that she's talking to. Whether or not Kyle would work without Jackie O, I mean, I can see it being a passing parade of different hosts. But I actually got to say, I can't even see him staying there without her. So it's really difficult. And we're also seeing it's in this era where they're trying to nationalise shows to make them more broadly economical. They don't work outside the Sydney market. In commercial television, 60 Minutes, Spotlight at 7, they're loath to do stories around Kyle and Jackie O because they don't work. It's been this long-known thing. Kyle doesn't work in other markets.
Jackie O's been papped coming out of a sound healing session with a full face of makeup and a blow dryer, I noticed. So she's obviously, getting on with life. Kyle's got these 14 days to patch up the relationship if that's what ARN thinks can actually happen. Why have they said this 14-day period? Is that to avoid him suing them?
Well, I think that this is a legal hurdle. They have to give him the opportunity to show cause as to why it wasn't serious misconduct. And I think you've hit the nail on the head as to what his argument's going to be. But they've got to give him this opportunity legally. I think the second Jackie Henderson said that she did not feel safe in the workplace with Kyle, this is a whole different level. When you say you don't feel safe in the workplace with someone, this isn't a personal blight. This is irreparable. That's a very serious accusation to level against someone, saying that everything that implies is quite serious. And I don't think Kyle saw it coming to this. Obviously, with his updates on air in the days after the blow up. I think most people outside of it, and we heard it, there were people saying, this is where it's going to go. And if that's all very serious, I predicted on Monday for $90 million each, these guys are going to be back. That amount of money can mend a lot of wounds. Obviously, she's prepared to forfeit those riches because she's at a stage of her life where she isn't prepared to be
she's
spoken to.
She's not going to
like
take it anymore. I mean, she's had enough.
Yeah.
And fair enough. I don't blame her either. It was a distressing listen, that tirade that he went on.
If someone spoke to you like that in the workplace, how would you react?
Yeah, I think what you heard there was two quite empowered people. He went on a rant. We've all been the victim of rants. If you're the less powerful person, you just submit to the rant and you go, yeah, okay, sorry. And you go away and cry in the toilets. She remained in the moment. She didn't change the subject. She kept arguing it out with him, which is very interesting. Speaking of stars, and I'm sorry to keep bringing it back to this, Jacko, in the past 5 years, and this is still happening, we're seeing some stars go out in the firmament of Australian broadcast. So we've seen the disappearance of John Laws, Alan Jones, Ray Hadley from the airwaves. You've reported on Karl Stefanovic's time being pretty much up at 9. He's got 1 year left on his contract and he says he doesn't know what's left now. Now potentially Kyle Sandilands and Jackie O disappearing. What is happening here? Is this the end of big money and big stars in broadcast?
Well, I think yes. I think it definitely is. But to your point about whether or not you'd accept it, it's quite interesting, right? Like, if I get berated like that in the newsroom by, say, the host of The Front saying I haven't done my research before coming on, and we've all felt like this. We've all gone back to our desk and gone, I want to quit. Oh, I'm so close. I'm going to tell them all. And they'll go home and you have a beer with a mate or talk to your partner and go, I'm so close. Unfortunately for most of us, mortgage, rent, kids, and you go, all right, I've got it. But when you're independently wealthy or financially stable, as both of these people are, like Jackie, why have I got to take this? It'd be great to have all this extra money, but she's already well off. She's already bought a home. She's building another mansion. She doesn't need to cop it. So it's one of those things that it's that FU moment that everyone else feels, and for her goes, oh, I can say it because...
Is it also then about employers and the broadcast companies just going, actually, we've had enough of your drama to the stars?
Yeah.
We're not prepared to put up with it anymore. We're over it.
Well, I think it comes back to you list off those people that you've said on the way out or who have gone, and it comes back to a market value. And we're going to see that at Nine Radio now that it's been bought by the Laundries, and it's great it's been bought by a billionaire and it's going to be a private company. But they're businessmen, and we're seeing more and more the media taken over by people who aren't in it just because they love media. It's also being treated very financially as a business, and the money isn't there that used to be. So we'll see it at Nine Radio, all their hosts, this is how much they're on. But where are you going to get that somewhere else? Karl Stefanovic at 9, you're on almost $3 million. where are you going to get that somewhere else? And it used to be, we've got to pay this much because 7 will swoop in or 10 will swoop in. No, they're not. They can't afford to keep their own, stars on their salaries. So it's going to be these market forces are going to drive down all those prices, and the era of, their stars and we've got to let them get away with murder, that is gone, because at the end of the day, it's like, they need to be proving their value, and it's not about let's keep them happy at all costs, because let's be honest, there's been a lot of people that have gone through that Kyle and Jackie O show as producers who've treated it as a rite of passage, you get yelled at and abused, and we've worked in newsrooms where you get yelled at and abused, and unfortunately, that era of just keeping the stars happy, I say unfortunately, it's not unfortunate at all, that era is gone, because there isn't anyone waiting in the wings to steal these stars away with equally lucrative contracts. We've seen it time and again. These people leave the network that they're on, and they find out very quickly that they were stars at that network, and that network and its resources poured into it made them famous. And then when they go off and try to do their own thing, they soon find out that without the star machine behind them, they're not quite the stars they thought they were.
Well, Jacko, that was absolutely hopeless, and please do better next time.
This is an outrage. I do not feel safe. I do not feel safe. I shouldn't joke, but, obviously it's a very serious accusation.
Yeah, it is serious. Thanks, Jacko.
All right, thank you for having me on.